group. Okay, welcome everybody to today's lunch break with the Rabbi. Today we're going to be discussing a very famous old age question, one that unfortunately we are all too common with, and we're going to try to pry a little bit beyond the surface to try to understand and go into the background and meaning of why this occurs. And the question that we're going to ask today is, why have Jews been singled out for persecution and hate throughout history? What is it about the Jews that they don't like us? That no matter what the age, no matter what the season, no matter what the race, no matter what the country, Jews have always been the target of persecution. They say once there was this Jew. In 1940, there was like a gang of Nazis who surrounded an elderly Jew. And all of a sudden, they start attacking the elderly Jew, and they go, "All right, Jew boy, who caused the war?" The old Jew might be scared, but he isn't stupid, so he says, the Jews. And after a brief pause, he goes, "And the motorcyclists and the bikers." So they look at him and says, "Why the motorcyclists?" So he looks at them and says, "Why the Jews?" One of the most oldest, the most pervasive forms of hatred, no matter what time, no matter what place, no matter what era, no matter what country, anti-Semites always had a place and looked to destroy us. And therefore they looked at the Jews as evil, an incarnation of the Satan, whatever it may be. And their only solution was to, God forbid, to try to exterminate or hurt the Jews. Why is it? What do they have against the Jews? What is it that anti-Semitism has that continues to be so pervasive regardless of where it is? What is it? And in fact, the funny thing is that anti-Semites, regardless of what the situation was, nearly always it was the fault of the Jews. In Germany, it was because they were communists. In Russia, it was because they were capitalists. The Nazis says they were vermin. The Arabs say that we were occupiers. No matter what happened, what would be the reason of anti-Semitism? In any case, the hatred against the Jews came and went, but for some reason, regardless of whatever party the Jews would be part of, there was an opposing party that hated them because of what they chose. Over today, thank God we live in a country, a free country, we're able to practice how we wish and how we want. However, there's still segments of our society that unfortunately have this anti-Semitism with them. And unfortunately, anti-Semitism didn't disappear, it just took on new forms. Today they call it anti-Israel, BDS movements, anti-Zionist, they're not really anti-Jews, regardless of what it is. What is it? Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, the former chief rabbi of England, once put it this way. He said, anti-Semitism is not an ideology or a coherent set of beliefs. In fact, anti-Semitism is a stream of contradictions. He says the best way to understand anti-Semitism is like a virus. And unfortunately, all of us are very well aware of what a virus is like. A virus attacks the human body, but the body has a sophisticated defense system, a human immune system. But what does the virus do? It mutates. Same thing is also anti-Semitism. It mutates. And in doing so, it tries to defeat the immune system by setting up cultures to protect itself against this hatred. What is this anti-Semitism? In many different cases, regardless of where we go throughout the different times of history, anti-Semitism took on different forms. At times, it was a religious anti-Semitism. At times, it was because we were against science. At times, it was because of human rights. That's what they want to say today. They call Israel the occupiers. Always, there's some type of reason for seemingly that they hate the Jews. Today, we're going to look at it from a mystical perspective. not, God forbid, legitimizing anti-Semitism, but trying to dig deep into the mind of the anti-Semite and to see what's really bothering them. And this way to try to mitigate, hopefully, and understand how we can stand strong against, regardless of whatever anti-Semitism comes our way. So what we have over here is take back to the first and well-known anti-Semite in Jewish history. The first exile that the Jewish people had was the exile that we know of, the Babylonian exile. Before that, when Mordechai was the leader of the Jewish people, the story of Purim after the destruction of the first temple, where the Jewish people were then in Persia, led by first Nebuchadnezzar, and then continuing to the story of Purim, where one of the most renowned anti-Semites, Haman, ought and sought to destroy the Jewish people. What was Haman's plan? He comes along to Achashverosh, who was the king at the time, and he says, Achashverosh, I got a plan for you. I got 10,000 golden dinar. I am going to put into the treasury of the king, and with that, you will give me permission to destroy the Jewish people. In one day, we're going to make a campaign, get rid of the Jews, in with all your country. Now, this was Achashverosh was the ruler of the world, and this would have been detrimental to all Jewish people at all times, as they would be under his governorship. Terrible decree. What does Achashverosh respond? No problem. Here's my signet ring. Keep the money. Do as you wish. My pleasure. The Talmud over here gives a parable to this whole dialogue between Achashverosh and Haman, the two seemingly anti-Semites of time. And the Talmud explains as follows. He says, take the example of Achashverosh and Haman, of two people. One person had a mound in the middle of his field, and another person had a ditch in his field. The fellow that had the mound comes over to the fellow with the ditch and says, listen here, give me the mound, I'll pay you for the mound that you have in your field. He says, what do you need to pay me for the mound? You have a ditch, I have a mound, I want to get rid of my mound, you want to fill your ditch, take my mound and fill your ditch. So too the same thing the Talmud explains of Achashverosh and Haman. Achashverosh had a mound, the Jewish people. Haman had a ditch, he had a hatred towards the Jewish people. Achashverosh was able to take his mound and fill the ditch. And both parties were happy. But why the parable? What don't we understand in the story of Purim that the Talmud has to give us a parable of a mound and a ditch? You see, two anti-Semites. Haman wants to kill the Jews. Achashverosh is more than happy to do it. And they make a partnership. Why the story of the mound? And over here, the mysticism explains to us and says that in the actual parable of Achashverosh and Haman, we understand the psyche of an anti-Semite. Look at Achashverosh. He was one type of anti-Semite. Achashverosh was a person who the Talmud refers to as a fool. He had no clue what was going around. What happens here? Achashverosh sees a mound. What does a mound mean? You have a mountain of dirt in your field that is misplaced. I don't want it here. There's no purpose for it. I don't know what it's here for. I just want to get rid of it. I have no reason for it. Why it's here, I don't know. It's just taking up space. Achashverosh's hatred for the Jewish people was not because there was a definitive hatred that he disliked something within them. They were just taking up space. What do I need them here for? It wasn't their attire, it wasn't their behavior, it wasn't their principles. They could have acquiesced to any type of demand that Achashverosh would have asked them, as he did give them many taxes, whatever it was. It wouldn't have changed one iota. It was a misplaced item in his field. He had nothing to do with it. He said, I don't need it here. Achashverosh regarded the Jews as an unwanted lump in his field. There was no reason why he hated them. There was no explanation why he hated them. He just didn't want them there. Haman, on the other hand, thought he had a beautiful life. He had wonderful trees, a beautiful garden. Everything was going his way. He was second in command to the king. Everybody was bowing down to him. And all of a sudden, there comes a Mordechai and says, sorry, Charlie, I'm not bowing down to you. We got our own principles, our own rules. What did that do? That created a ditch. That created an emptiness within Haman. He said, look, I thought I'm on top of the world. And now I see somebody else is happy. and they're not second in command, and they don't have everything I have, the wealth, the prestige, the honor? How can that be? What do they have that I don't have that makes them happy? Haman was a hated Jews because Jews made Haman feel that he is empty of meaning, of purpose. He thought he had it all, but he realizes he doesn't. He realizes that he's missing things. He had a deep void in his heart and his life. And therefore, he couldn't quite identify what that source of that void, of that depth, of that missing consciousness that he has. And he blamed it on the Jews. He compared it to Mordechai, to the Jews who were studying Torah, impressed with God's godliness, cultivated a relationship with God. And they seemed happy, gleeful. They were not suppressed by what was going on around them. That made him disturbed. That made him, who was a materialistic based individual, hollow, empty. He had a ditch. Now, what were the possible solutions for Haman? There are two things he could have done. When somebody else makes you feel empty, when somebody else you see is discovering or is happy and you're not, there are two things you can do. The easiest thing would be get rid of that person. Like this, they don't make you feel empty. Destroy the competition, so to speak. Or make yourself better. Reach into that void. Create, fill the void. But that's not what Haman decided to do. We know that Haman, what he decided to do was, instead of looking at the message and improving himself, he decided to kill the messenger. He decided he's going to go after the messenger, the Jewish people, and try to eradicate them to the best of his ability, coming to Achashverosh. And he comes to Achashverosh and says, I got an idea. You have this displaced mound. You have no clue what the Jewish people are doing in your territory. They're making me angst. They are making me problems. I'll get rid of it. We'll both be happy. We now understood what the Purim story is telling us wasn't just the story of the past, but is telling us the metaphor of what every anti-Semite feels. That there are two types of anti-Semites. There's an anti-Semite who has this unknown mound in his field. There's an anti-Semite who says, go back to Europe, go back to Russia, get out of Israel, this and that and the other. Those type of anti-Semites, they have no clue why they hate the Jews. It's just, that's the thing to do. It's a displaced mound. What are you doing here? You're just getting in my way. But then there are anti-Semites who the Jew makes them feel guilty. The Jew, seeing the Jews successful in their spiritual endeavor with God, seeing that the Jews are connected to a higher source, seeing that the Jews have the land of Israel, the beauty, the God. They go for a higher calling. They say, no. This disturbs us. What was communism's against the Jewish people? That despite the challenges they went through, look how they attacked the previous Rebbe and all the religious Jews, was because since they saw that these Jews were not suppressed or oppressed because of communism. The Jews in the concentration camps had their belief in God, even dancing into the gas chambers, God forbid, because nothing was able to suppress their belief in God. This is what hurt the anti-Semites even more, showing them that their emptiness, their materialistic honor and prestige was nothing worth. So over here you have the two types of anti-Semites. What does the Torah teach us? How do we combat anti-Semitism? We have to stop responding to the promptings of the anti-Semites and instead live a life in accordance with our core identity and principles. Show them that we can be a light unto the nations, that we can live by the principles of godliness. Show them how we can infuse our life with holiness, and they too don't have to live a life of emptiness. It's not about destroying the competition, it's about you becoming just as good. That when the non-Jew sees the Jew adherent and observant to his beliefs and his identities of God, he too will also want to become part of it. He too will also become connected to his God. He too will also find a way to relate himself, to have a relationship with God. And therefore, remove that emptiness from his heart. We need to embrace the values that demonstrate the world that we have a value system and so too they can embrace this value system. And we see that when Jews take our mission seriously, of being a light unto the nations, we don't only affect ourselves. It's never to be embarrassed of who we are. Being a proud Jew, it does not only not create anti-Semitism, but diffuses anti-Semitism. Being proud of who we are, celebrating our Judaism, celebrating the fact of who we are, hanging a mezuzah proudly on our door, putting our menorah in the window. These things stop anti-Semitism. These things show the non-Jew that they too can also create and have a relationship with Almighty God, and to be proud of it. So in short, just to summarize what we learned today, anti-Semitism survives by mutating the misappropriate, the most sacred high values given to any given generation. The underlying cause for anti-Semitism is consciously or unconsciously the resentment of the Jew for making the anti-Semite feel and aware of his emptiness and his insecurities. And the answer to that is to stay true to our beliefs by example, showing others how to infuse our life with holiness and purpose. With that, my friends, go take on the day. Make your day brighter, greater, and healthier, spiritually and physically. God bless. See you tomorrow at 1 p.m.